Hey guys, Sean here. Today, Luke and I are back with another tier list. Today, we'll be talking about the best structure decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! So as we all know, structure decks lately have become very strong. One of the best decks in the game right now is a structure deck. Without further ado, let's review these decks. So we have a few tiers here. We have
Sigma Showdown, Sacred Based, Strike These Nuts, It's No God, It's a Monster, and Buy the Singles.
Alright, so let's begin with a monster. The Egyptian God structure decks were pretty bad. Sad to say, but they were pretty damn bad. They had Harpies. That's the only good card in those decks was Harpies.
Yeah, I think just because of that, it should be Buy the Singles. That's literally it.
Yeah.
I know we did the pun of It's No God, It's a Monster, but this structure deck was really bad. I mean, it was fun to play when we did that video where we pinned them against each other, but definitely Buy the Singles. Harpies was the only thing worthwhile in there. Of course, it's always cool to get another printing of an Egyptian God card, but overall, literally, you were paying, like, what, €10, maybe $12 for a Harpies Feather Duster.
Yeah, not worse. Okay, here's a good one though. We have the Crystal Beast structure deck. Probably goes in Sacred Based because it's just a really good structure deck.
I want to plead its case for it being top tier just because I thought it was really, really good. Just in the sense that it just added a bunch of support that really revolutionized the deck, and not only that, when structure deck have like two boxes checked, being one, it really puts the archetype to a whole new level and has good staples. That's when I think, yeah, this is really, really good. But I don't know, just seeing the other powerful things, this is subject to change. Crystal Beast was definitely really, really good. Definitely deserves to be high up there.
That's true. I mean, the new support for the deck, insane. Like, this is what we want from a structure deck. We want the new cards in a structure deck to really elevate the deck to actually like playability in the modern day, which is what this deck did. And you know, the staples were insane. It's always good to get really good staples like Ashes and Ghost Spells and just good hand traps in a deck like this. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good high tier deck.
Speaking of Ash,
okay, this is like the OG Ash structure deck. This is the Salamangre structure deck. I know you can't tell, but yeah, it had Ash in it. So me and Luke used to be pretty big Salamangre haters, and we still are because it's funny to hate on Salamangreats, but they're honestly a very good deck. We know TOS format was full of Salamangreats. They're a good deck, like 100%. They're very like competitive in the modern day. Obviously a fire deck, and we all know how good fire decks are now.
I still like the idea that Salads have where they're able to, with the Sanctuary up, they're able to link summon a monster while using that same link monster as material. I think that's pretty good. The fact that they have monsters like Sunlight Wolf that's played now in Fire Kings as well. Just because it's funny to hate on Salamangre players though, I'll put it down to Buy in the Singles.
Alright, sounds good to me.
Alright.
I mean, in fairness, you're better off buying the singles because like everything's been reprinted. So
yeah, exactly.
Alright, we have, this is weird to say, but I think the Shaddoll deck goes mid tier just because of how good new structure decks are.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, I know we love Construct and Winda, I know we love Shaddolls because they're based, but fuck it. They're Sacred Based.
They are Sacred Based.
They're a really good deck, honestly. Like, Shaddolls have always been a really good deck, you know? Like, obviously they were one of the best decks in 2014 when they came out. They stayed very relevant even after bans and stuff like that. And even nowadays, they synergize very well with decks like Branded and stuff like that. And the structure deck, it basically gives you everything you need.
What I really like about this deck is that this was the first structure deck that really gave you a big enough extra deck to play with. Although you do have a few structure decks that give like sizable extra decks, like Shaddolls were pretty much the first one that essentially gave you almost a full extra deck to play along with it. I think just fusion summoning is probably one of my favorite summon mechanics that this game has. I really, really like it, and the fact that these boss monsters, even by today's standards, are still really, really great. People still play Winda because it's an amazing floodgate, and Construct's just an absolute beast on her own. I still think it's really, really great. I think that this definitely marks a turning point in the way structure decks should be. I think it ticks the box of elevating the deck, but just not the box of having a good reprint. So I think your argument is right that it's not as good as the ones we've got lately, but still very good.
I agree, and also it has Super Poly in it, so you know.
Oh yeah, holy shit, why isn't this thing top tier?
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, we have Order of the Spellcasters, aka the Endymion deck. Endymion very strong, okay? There's no denying that it's like a very good deck. But you know, it's very good, but it's not like the best. It has its flaws because obviously it's a pendulum deck. Now, it is probably the best pendulum deck in the game.
But it's still a pendulum deck.
Yeah, it's still a pendulum deck, and Electromite's ban and all that. It does have Droll in it. Droll's pretty good.
Droll's great.
But yeah, I think it's cool because you can just buy 3 of this and you have a pretty good Endymion deck. And it's a fair deck. You can like legit win with it. It's not a bad deck at all. But you know, it is still Endymion, still pendulums. It has its weaknesses, it has its flaws. Next up, we have the best deck in the game.
Put it below Salads.
I mean, it's a good Cyber Dragon deck, in fairness. Like, it gives you a lot of Cyber Dragon cards.
They tainted my boys with horrible Cyber Darks. That should never, ever happen. You only reason to buy this deck, besides the Cyber Dragons, which are based, is Imperm. That is literally
Oh,
it.
yeah, that's true. Imperm and also Cyber Dark Chimera, the only good Cyber Dark card, because it searches Power Bond.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I hate Cyber Dark so much. And the fact that this puts such a focus on them really ticked me off. It was great for reprints, as we said, Imperm, and also Cyber Emergency was finally printed as a common, so pretty much everyone could get that. But then again, that kind of just helped Drytron players, which is kind of cringe. I just really hate Cyber Darks. Just leave at the bottom. It doesn't deserve to be up there with Cyber Dragons in all their glory.
Next up, we have the Dark World Structure Deck, the second of the Dark World Structure Decks. I think it's better than the Crystal Beast Structure Deck. I mean, in terms of a Structure Deck, right, it doesn't have good staples. It just has good Dark World cards. So if we're talking about that as a structure, as an overall product, I think the Crystal Beast one is better. But in terms of like meta relevancy, Dark Worlds are really good. Dark Worlds are very good. The support they got, obviously fantastic. Even got a bunch of dangerous stuff in here, which is pretty cool. Buying 3 structure decks pretty much gives you a fully functional Dark World deck, which is great to see.
Nah, Crystal Beast stood toe to toe with Tyr.
I mean, I guess that's fair, but...
Yeah, I think it's good deck, but like I suppose it's good. You can definitely win a lot of games with Dark World. I think it is a really, really good deck. But yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Leave it as is. I think it's fine.
I'd say they're pretty on par with each other, you know? I think as a product, the Crystal Beast deck has the edge just because of the staples. Like, we can just say, oh yeah, they're matching power level, but the staples really put this product over the edge.
Yeah, I guess so. What I don't like is the fact that with, I suppose you can make the same argument with Crystal Beast with the fact that you need to buy that trap card and a copy of Necro Valley. But same with Dark World, you'd still need to buy a bunch of dangers, and also they got a bit of support with the Dark Corridor, which people kind of run at like 2 at least most of the time. I don't know, Dark World's pretty good. I think you're probably right, it just should be there.
Next up, we have the best deck in the game, Sacred Beasts. We all love Sacred Beasts. It's going to get insanely powerful with the new Yubel support. It's going to be the best deck in the game. Alright, let's be honest. It's no god, it's a monster, even though they're better Egyptian gods, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We love Sacred Beasts here on this channel. Sacred Beasts are just awesome. They're a really good showcase of how you can make an anime deck, like, playable. Obviously, the Sacred Beasts were not very good when they came out because there was like no good support. But even just the very few support cards they put in this deck made Sacred Beasts a genuinely playable deck, which is awesome to see. It's not competitive by any means, but it's just very fun. You can play like big powerful boss monsters, get them out super easily. They have very good cards in the context of their deck. Cards like Fallen Paradise not only act as protection, but they also let you draw 2 cards, which is hilarious, as Free Pot agreed. Their boss monster, we all love a 10k attack monster that cannot be destroyed. It's just a great deck, it's very fun. It didn't have great hand traps or staples in it, but as a product I really enjoyed it. But if we're putting it on a tier list, you know, it's not the best.
Okay, now let's talk about a good one.
This is a pretty good one. I think for Branded Fusion alone it goes like up to Sigma Showdown.
Yeah, definitely.
It's, you know, it introduced Mirror Jade and Branded Fusion, 2 of the most influential cards on the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame. Branded Fusion allowing you to fusion someone from deck, being one of the first like very good ones. Obviously we had Shadal Fusion, but Shadal Fusion walked, so Branded Fusion could run. Branded Fusion's insane. And obviously the payoff for Branded Fusion is your Mirror Jade, which is a quick effect, non-targeting banish. It's just insane. The structure deck itself had some decent staples, and as a structure deck, it's pretty shit, I'll be honest with you. But Branded Fusion alone, along with Mirror Jade, is just, it put it over the edge. Next up, we have Fire Kings. definitely one of the most insane structure decks that has been released like ever. It genuinely is the best structure deck in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Hear me out though, I don't think it's as good as the branded one.
Okay.
Reason being that the branded one absolutely shaped the game. You can put branded engine to pretty much anything. I put it in Witchcrafters and it worked. I put it in Skull Serve and it worked. You put it in pretty much anything, it still works. Fire Kings need a particular synergy to work in multiple decks. I think for that reason alone, I put the branded stuff a little bit further. Also, the branded boss monster being Mirror Jade, I find is just a lot stronger than Grunix in itself. I think we'll still be seeing branded in a few formats. In a few formats, I don't see Fire King surviving 3 ban lists.
I'm not sure if I agree. Arguing for Fire Kings, they do have a lot of good staples. They have Impermanent Roll, which is pretty good, like staples that every deck runs these days. And the strategy is really good, and obviously if you put 3 Fire King structure decks together versus 3 copies of the Albaz structure deck together, you're going to get like a really good deck versus an unplayable deck because the cards in this deck are just not good. But Fire King I think are really good. I can understand the relevancy, like the meta warping nature of this. Obviously Fire Kings, they're a good deck, but they're not as good on their own as they are with like support, with like Bonfire and all the Pyro and Fire support. I still think they're the best deck, but you know. We have Rocket Revolt. The structure deck was okay. It had some good cards in it. Obviously, Rocket Tracer, for a while it was very difficult to get this card until they reprinted it. Basically the backbone of modern Dragon Link decks. So, just a great deck. You can put 3 structure decks and get like a decent deck, but it's only alright. Like, you want to take out the good cards from this deck and then put them in a good Dragon Link engine. So, a very good deck, obviously. You can put 3 together, it's a decent deck. Decent staples, but nothing too crazy. I think it belongs about here. I honestly say like Shaddolls are better as a product.
Yeah, because if you put 3 Shaddol decks together, you get a proper good deck. 3 of the Rocket decks together, it makes a decent deck, but not as good as Shaddolls.
We have the Freezing Curses, or whatever the Ice Barrier deck was called. I will say in its defense, it is a playable strategy, and it had like 2 good cards. It had Trishula, and then the Retrain, the level 11. It's better than these 3, I'll be honest, it's better than the bottom 3, but yeah, it's not very good. However, new Ice Barrier support coming out, I will eat my words, because this deck will become the best in the game, I'm telling you. Traptrix. Everyone says that Traptrix is the best structure deck because you can put 3 together and make a competitive deck. I don't give a shit, Traptrix are fucking cringe. They have decent cards in them, like Evenly, of course. That was like the main reason to buy it if you weren't going to play Traptrix. The support's pretty good, and you know, it's an alright meta deck, but not nearly as good as Fire Kings. I think Dark World and Crystal Beast are better.
I think so too. I think put it just above Shaddolls.
Yeah.
I like the playstyle, but this deck does have a few weaknesses. I think the reprints were great, but overall, Traptrix as an archetype, I feel like Traptrix is one of these things that you can probably, if you're going against them, you might lose the first game, but if you know exactly what to side, they honestly do not stand a chance. Traptrix are good. I like the idea that it's a simple deck to learn because it takes advantage of both links and XZs, and it's a good way that use traps as well to kind of introduce people to Yu-Gi-Oh! But I don't think it's as powerful as Dark World. I think Dark World had a lot more relevance on the local scene at least than Traptrix did.
I will say though, I think you only need 3 structure decks of Traptrix to have like the full deck, whereas you need to buy a few cards to make Dark Worlds like fully good. But you know, I still think like it's worth buying a few extra cards for Dark World than it is to be playing like 3 structure decks of Traptrix and that's it. And obviously, you know, not enough staples in this deck to be too high up. Okay, we have the best deck in the game, Art Machines, let's go. Okay, probably it's old. You know, the Machina structure deck had some cool cards in it. Obviously these cards are still played because Machina's like Citadel, Gear Frame, the Spell Searcher. It has a bunch of very like relevant cards in Art Machines. Even though this deck came out like almost a decade ago, it's still like very strong. It still has some very strong and relevant cards for Art Machines, but obviously not really any good staples. Nothing like game breaking, you know, it's good for like its archetype and that's about it. Next up we have the Crimson King. I unironically think this is a very good deck. probably about here. I think that the support they gave Red Dragon Archfiend was genuinely very, very good, and I think this is one of my most favorite structure deck decks that I've ever built. Not many staples, but you know, that's fine because I feel like as a product, it is worth buying even if it has like not really good staples, because it's just a fun deck to play. You pretty much get everything you need to make a good Red Dragon Archfiend deck. Obviously, it doesn't really like compete with a lot of these decks, but if you add a few Bestials, this deck becomes like legit. It has topped like a good few events because Bestials are just that good and they synergize very well with Bestials and just synchro monsters in general. But I will be fair, probably like this. I think the Traptrix structure deck is probably a bit better.
Yeah, I think the only thing edging the Traptrix one is the reprints a little bit. But I think that's kind of just the only thing really. I feel like the Red Dragon Archfiend structure deck is a lot like the Dark World structure deck. They don't really rely on reprints. It's genuinely just a good product in itself. It's genuinely just a good deck to stand alone. So yeah, I think just the fact that it doesn't have as many like reprints, it doesn't make it a bad product. It's still a great one, of course, but maybe Traptrix might out it just a little bit.
We have the Spirit Charmer thing. This is like really bad. This is like so bad. This is not even a deck.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing worse than the Cyber Dark one. Hey, it had Raigeki.
It had a Raigeki. It had Dark Ruler.
Yeah.
I think it might have had like one other decent card.
You know what? I really like the idea that like they had these tokens with them.
That was really cool.
And like you're not guaranteed all the tokens. You were guaranteed like one different one or whatever. I thought that was a cool gimmick, but yeah, that was just an awful fucking deck.
It had a lot of potential. Obviously, the Charmers are fan favorites, and they're like a cool kind of gimmick where they all revolve around a certain attribute. But they really just dropped the ball. They could have made it. They could have put in like decent effort. It wouldn't have broken the game. It would have been fine if they were decent, but they're just like, yeah, let's just make them bad. Let's just keep them bad, you know. And finally, pretend this is Hero Strike, probably around here, because it gives you a good bunch of hero cards, but you know, it's very outdated. Doesn't give you good stuff like Stratos, just gives you Shadow Mist and a bunch of masked hero stuff. It does have Dark Law though, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this was probably like the introduction to Dark Law. This is what really made heroes like top meta contention at the time. Then against heroes, it's never really gonna be meta. Introducing the mask heroes, I think, was definitely a really good move. Good step in the right direction for heroes, because you didn't need to rely on having two monsters to fuse into. You're able to just like one monster fuse. I feel like if Stratos wasn't banned and this had Stratos instead of Avion in the structure deck, this would be like a god tier one. But unfortunately, that was not the case. It's still a really good deck. I still think it's cool. Heroes are still like probably one of my favorite archetypes. But overall, in terms of the structure deck itself, you just had a lot of crap in it. You didn't need Ocean, you didn't need like Forest or whatever his name is. Yeah, you pretty much just bought this for Shadow Mist and Mass Change and Dark Law.
This is the oldest structure deck. We originally were not going to include it, but it is worth talking about because, you know, I don't want to say it's better than some of these other ones here, especially my sacred-based boys. But, you know, heroes are generally more relevant, and I'd say, you know, there's an argument to be made that Dark Law is better than the whole Sacred Beast deck, which is very sad, but maybe true. So that's it for the list. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know. Obviously, a lot of these structure decks, you can base them off a bunch of things. You can base them off, you know, the cards that they have in them, like the staples and stuff like that. You can base them off how relevant the actual archetype is. You can base them off a bunch of different things, like how well you can put 3 structure decks together. So, you know, a bunch of different ways you can look at these rankings. So let us know what you think in the comments, and give us suggestions for other tier lists you want to see in the future. Thanks for watching.